E85 fuel. More octane, less cash. Cheaper per gallon, high knock resistance. Sounds smart, right? But some call it a trap. I want to know if it really helps normal drivers, or if it hides bills down the road. I'm Morgan, and I'm bringing the same safety-first mindset I use on investigations. I pulled real road tests, oil lab data, and teardown notes. The core question is simple. Does cheap, high-octane fuel actually save you, or does it cost you later? The answer lives in two places: miles per gallon and engine health. Quick tip before we dive in. Most cars see about 20 to 30% lower miles per gallon on E85. So the pump price has to be that much lower just to break even. And because prices swing with seasons and region, that math can change week to week. Here's the plan today. I'll show how octane really works, compare cost per gallon versus cost per mile, and dig into what ethanol does inside your oil. We'll look at wear metals, moisture risks, and why flex fuel hardware is not the same as your everyday fuel system. Have you seen higher price per mile on ethanol where you live? First up, the money math that makes or breaks E85. E85 feels like a bargain at the pump. But the story changes once we talk miles per gallon. Because ethanol carries less energy per gallon, many flex fuel trucks and SUVs lose roughly 1/5 to 1/4 of their fuel economy. In one big SUV test I reviewed, the range dropped by about 1/4 on E85. A trip that was easy on gasoline suddenly looked doubtful on a single tank once the switch was made. Here's the practical math. If E85 is only 10% cheaper than regular gas, but your miles per gallon drop by 20%, you didn't save money. You paid more per mile. To truly come out ahead, the price has to be roughly 20 to 30% lower, and it has to stay there. That rarely holds for long in many regions. So, I always tell drivers to measure cost per mile, not just price per gallon. Track a full tank on your normal route, calculate miles divided by dollars, and compare. It is simple and honest. Even if the costs balance out, the engine still pays a price in another way. Your oil will tell you first, and that's where we go next. Your engine oil should be, well, oil. But with E85, more fuel can slip past the rings and end up in the crankcase. Ethanol has a high heat of vaporization, so cold starts and rich mixtures pull more of it into cylinder walls. That mix can seep by as blow-by. In controlled testing, used oil from engines on E85 showed fuel content as high as 6 to 25% of the oil volume. That is not a tiny amount. What does that do? It thins the oil and weakens the protective film. One lab statement put it perfectly. Fuel dilution reduces the lubricating efficiency and wear protection of the oil. I have held samples that poured like a grade or two thinner than what went in. That means bearings, cams, and rings all see less cushion at the exact moment you need it. If your routine is lots of short trips, this gets worse. The oil never stays hot long enough to burn off that fuel. My advice: shorten oil change intervals when running high ethanol blends and keep an eye on oil smell and feel. Thinner oil means higher risk, and higher risk leads to the next concern: actual engine wear. Thin oil is like a weak helmet. Metal meets metal sooner, and wear creeps up. When I look at oil reports from engines run hard on E85, I often see two things at once: notable fuel in the oil and a rise in wear metals. In lab wear tests, ethanol-blended oil produced measurably larger wear scars, often around 10% higher than pure gasoline baselines. Add fuel dilution, and you speed up the march toward a lower viscosity limit, forcing earlier changes. Another pattern shows up over time. The oil's acid number tends to climb faster with ethanol contamination. That hints at oxidation and corrosion stress, which is not what you want inside bearings or on soft metal overlays. None of this means instant failure. It means your safety margin shrinks. And when margins shrink, little things like a cold start, a heavy tow, or a summer heat wave take a bigger bite. My practical playbook is simple. If you run a lot of E85, change oil sooner by roughly 1/3, use a high-quality filter, and consider a periodic used oil analysis to prove the interval. Still wondering why folks chase E85? The big lure is octane. Let's clear up what octane really does next. Octane does one job. It resists knock. It does not add energy by itself. E85 delivers very high knock resistance, often north of 100 in research terms, and it cools the intake charge. That is great on engines that are tuned to push timing and boost near the edge. But most daily drivers are not running like that. They cruise with modest compression, safe timing, and plenty of knock margin on regular gas. So if your engine is not knock limited, extra octane is mostly unused headroom. You will not feel more power unless the computer is asking for more timing or the tune is written to exploit that room. I have seen big gains on turbo builds with a proper tune for E85. I have also seen stock sedans feel exactly the same, just visiting the pump more often and thinning their oil faster. If this breakdown helps, take a second to subscribe to Recall Roadmap with Morgan. I post clear, safety-first car guidance each week. Tap like and share with a friend who is on the fence about ethanol. Now, octane is not the only hidden factor. Ethanol's love for water can raise a new set of problems. Let's talk moisture. Water in your engine? It sounds wild, but here is how it happens. Ethanol is hygroscopic, which means it pulls moisture from air. In damp weather or in a cold garage, that moisture can ride along in the fuel and tank. Short, slow trips make it worse. The engine never gets hot enough, long enough to boil off the water and the extra fuel. Over time, that mix can form emulsions in the oil and cause sludge, rust stains, or sticky film in lines and filters. There is another twist. Ethanol is a very effective solvent. It scrubs old varnish and residue off parts. That sounds like cleaning, but those loosened bits have to go somewhere. They often go right into tiny passages, screens, and injectors. In small bursts, the system can handle it. If your routine is quick hops to the store and back, it can pile up fast. My fix is simple and boring, which is exactly what you want for reliability. In cold seasons or short trip life, favor gasoline with lower ethanol, take periodic longer highway drives, and change oil on time. That knocks down moisture load. Still thinking E85 might fit you? It can, if your car was built for it. Let's compare designs. Flex fuel vehicles are not just normal cars with a sticker. They have hardware and software built for alcohol. Lines and pumps use materials that stand up to ethanol. Seals and O-rings are chosen to resist swelling. The computer reads ethanol content and adjusts fuel, spark, and sometimes oil change reminders. Many flex fuel owners' manuals even call for shorter oil intervals when running high ethanol blends. That is not a scare tactic. It is engineering. Most regular cars are approved for about 10% ethanol, sometimes 15%. More than that can stress parts that were never rated for it. I have seen injectors and pumps get noisy and older hoses turn soft. Even if the engine runs, the long-term costs can land on you. Some makers will not honor warranty claims if E85 is used in a non-flex fuel model. So, check the owner's manual and the fuel door. If it does not say E85 is allowed, it is not tested for it. When you are in a proper flex fuel vehicle, the system can handle the blend and the tune can adapt. But all this talk about design raises one more flag. The machines most likely to suffer are not cars at all. They are small engines. Let's go there. 85% ethanol in a lawnmower or outboard is asking for trouble. Small engines use simple carbs, soft gaskets, and little filters. Ethanol's solvent power can swell rubber, lift old varnish, and carry that debris into tiny jets. If the machine sits, ethanol evaporates faster than gasoline. What is left behind turns gummy, then crusty. I have opened bowls after a winter and the mess looked like coffee grounds. Two-stroke tools have their own risk. The oil that is mixed into the fuel can separate, and ethanol can pull in water. That means poor lube at startup and corrosion on parts that should stay dry. Stabilizers help a little by slowing oxidation, but they are not magic and they do not remove water that is already in the fuel. My rule set is simple. For mowers, snowblowers, generators, and boats, use ethanol-free gas when you can, or drain the system dry before storage. Use fresh fuel within a month. Replace old soft lines. If you must store with fuel inside, use a stabilizer as a short-term helper, not a cure. Even with perfect storage, additives are not a silver bullet. Let's separate fixes from folklore next. Can a bottle in the tank solve ethanol's downsides? Not really. Some additives can slow oxidation, help keep fuel mixed longer, or clean small deposits. That is fine, but it does not change the core physics. They cannot turn E85 into gasoline. They cannot stop ethanol from thinning oil if fuel sneaks past the rings. They cannot pull water that is already dissolved out of the blend. Industry guidance is clear on storage. Do not mix high ethanol fuel with long-term storage plans and expect no gum. I stay practical. Use quality fuel from busy stations, keep it fresh, and do not stretch oil intervals when you run high ethanol. If you want performance, tune for it and monitor the results. If you want low hassle, choose the fuel your manual prefers, especially in cold, short-trip life. Additives are tools, not magic. We have covered cost per mile, oil dilution, wear, octane reality, moisture, flex fuel design, and storage. So what is the verdict? It depends on your vehicle and your habits. I'll tie that decision together next so you can make a safe, confident call. Here is the bottom line. E85 delivers real octane and knock resistance, but most daily drivers are not set up to use that extra headroom. Cheaper per gallon often turns into more stops and a higher cost per mile. In the oil, ethanol can slip in, thin the film, and nudge wear and corrosion up. Moisture and short trips amplify the risk. Flex fuel systems can handle it better by design, and tuned builds can shine with it. But for the average commuter, the trade may not pencil out. My advice is calm and simple. Do the cost per mile math. If you drive lots of short trips or face cold seasons, favor fuels with lower ethanol. If you own a true flex fuel vehicle and run long highway miles, E85 can make sense with shorter oil intervals and good maintenance. If you chase performance, tune for it and verify. If this helped, subscribe to Recall Roadmap with Morgan and drop a like. Thanks for watching. So, what's your verdict? Go for the lower pump price or skip it for engine piece? Share your story in the comments and tell me what you drive, because your routine is the real deciding factor.